All right, guys, welcome back to another edition of Coach's Corner. We have all of our coaches on staff. Majority of them are on today, but our presenter is going to be Xavion. So Xavion, give us a wave so everyone knows who you are. So the topic today, motivation versus discipline, the yin and yang of health. So we're going to be talking all things motivation and discipline as we talk to Xavion a little bit. We'll also call on other people from our staff just to get kind of an idea of what they feel about this topic or some research that they've done on it as well. So before we get going into our topic, Xavion, you know what time it is. It's rapid fire time. So we do this before every coach's corner. So I have like 15 questions. They're going to be this or that or your favorite something. So rapid fire. So no ums, no pauses, or straight to it. Are you ready to go?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So here we go. Pop-Tart or toaster strudel?
Pop-Tart.
Favorite healthy snack?
Banana.
Protein or carbs?
Protein.
Favorite color?
Green.
Favorite Christmas gift?
Oof. Gift card.
Oh, favorite piece of exercise equipment?
Barbell.
Running or rowing?
Rowing.
Box jumps or burpees?
Box jumps.
Captain Crunch or Cinnamon Toast Crunch?
Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Easy.
Mountains or beach?
Mountains.
Favorite state you've traveled to?
Wisconsin.
Rice or potatoes?
Ooh. Potatoes.
Ice cream or cake?
Ice cream.
Rock climbing or hiking?
Hiking.
Favorite thing you do in your job?
Connecting with people.
Favorite hobby?
I'd just say low scale hiking.
Nice. Job well done. Very well executed. Those were some tough ones, so kudos. So, guys, we're going to move right into it. This is a topic that most of our coaches are super passionate about. And, you know, all of us go through phases of high motivation or low motivation. So we want to touch on that today. We want to talk about some different things surrounding these topics. But the first thing I would really like to go to is, Xavion, how do you even classify motivation and discipline?
For sure. I think I could start by just providing the basic definitions because that'll lay the framework for the rest of the conversation. But so motivation being the general desire or willingness of someone to do something versus discipline, it's training oneself to do something in a controlled and habitual fashion. The way I look at motivation discipline after reading about them, motivation is something that I think a lot of us are familiar with. We tend to use it a little bit interchangeably with discipline, but it's different in the sense that it's that initial spark. It's what gets us going. It is very powerful, but I think often short-lived. Rather, it's hours, days, or weeks. It does tend to kind of run out. You know, a lot of us on a daily basis strive to find some more motivation to get whichever task it is done versus discipline is something that inherently is a little bit longer lasting. We can develop it over time and we can practice it. And it's usually small things that add up to some consistent small things that add up to what is discipline.
So in saying that, would you say that it sounds like you're saying there's a difference between the two, but can you clarify a little bit more of like, if there is a difference, what is it?
For sure. I think it goes back to, I kind of mentioned earlier that like motivation is that initial spark, it is what gets you going. It's something that we can lean on to begin something new. I think of motivation as more of a beginning of something, a beginning of tasks, versus discipline is something that we create over time to continuously practice repetitively over, rather be a task or something we do on a daily basis. It's something that you can develop, versus motivation can come from a number of different places. It's usually thought of like, rather it's something said in a conversation, something you saw somewhere, something you read. It sparks that thought of like, oh, I want to make this change. I'm motivated to get this done and begin X, Y, Z. Versus discipline is like, this is what I do. This is what I've been doing. This is how I do it. And I get this done no matter what on a daily, weekly, however, habitual basis that is.
Yeah, I feel like everyone, like, we all have had things that we want to start and we're like super motivated to do it and we're amped about it. And then 3 weeks in, there is no more motivation there. What we said we wanted, we're not real sure that we still want it because of what we have to do to get there. And I think that's the biggest thing. That's when discipline kicks in, is when motivation is no longer at the forefront of the actions that you're taking, right? I think we can all be motivated for a week, for 2, for 3, if we have like this goal coming up. But what happens after that initial motivation is starting to wear off? So I guess my next question would be, with motivation and discipline, we talk about it being the yin and yang in health, like it has to go together, but are really both needed for success in overall health? And if so, can you elaborate on that?
For sure. I think need is a strong word. As I was doing some reading, I was also just kind of reflecting on my own experiences and the things that I've observed in other people. I think there's some instances where motivation can be enough. We'll get motivated, we have this goal, we're able to knock it out in that amount of time. Those very like short-term goals, I think, is what you could probably sum that up as. Versus there are some instances where wherever it came up at, maybe it was in something we learned growing up in our past, what have you, and we developed some discipline with a certain task, we were able to stay the course and maybe become better because of that. But I do think in instances where you want to make a change, you're likely going to have both. You're going to be motivated to make some change. If not else, how are you going to notice it, right? Get that feeling that you do want to make that change. And then you're going to have to develop some type of plan, some type of task to execute on a regular basis. That's where you begin to develop your discipline and try and maintain that over time.
Yeah, I feel like any type of goal would be your motivation, right? Whether it be you want to lose a few pounds before your 25th reunion, your high school reunion, or you've realized that you are having trouble playing with your grandkids and can't get off the ground if you get down there. So your goal is to be able to get off the ground when you're playing with your grandkids. So I would say like that goal is your initial motivation to start the change. But then, my question is, and I feel like our users would want to know this, like a lot of us in this field are somewhat innately disciplined. We have that personality that once we set a goal, we're very much like structured individuals in the fitness industry. What I've realized in my 13 years in here is like, not everyone is that disciplined. Not everyone enjoys it that way. So like, what would you say? How do you become disciplined if you feel like you are not naturally just a disciplined person? If you're a person that really hates structure, you feel confined by it, like how do you become disciplined if that's not innate to you?
I think you have to start with looking for the little things and allowing those to be significant to yourself. I think as I talk to people on a regular basis, as I'm coaching and interacting with folks, they might be discouraged by this, I only did this today, so why continue? Well, I try to flip my frame of thought in that, that was a win and that you should hold on to that and, celebrate that. and try to build off that. So I think consistency is going to be huge with holding on to the small wins and allowing those to add up and allowing those to grow over time. Kind of in the same thought, I think a game plan is necessary. So when I think of kind of tying this in with motivation specifically, when I'm at my most motivated point, I try to set myself up for success. I'm like, okay, this is what I want to do. What do I need to do to get to that point? And I try to make those small steps I was referring to, I try to make those the easy option. If I need to sign up for a gym membership, if I need to get a coach, if I need to research a certain topic, that way I understand what I'm about to get into. I can set myself up for success at the peak of my motivation. And that way, when that does inevitably, if not run out, simmer down, that I've got something to hold on to and to keep pushing forward with.
Yeah, I love that. And I want to call on some other coaches with this. And this is a hard question. Like, how do you become disciplined if you feel like you're not a naturally disciplined person? But what I want to call on the coaches for is like, what are some things that maybe you've had to do in your daily life to create discipline in an area that may not be of interest to you? Like, how do you do that? Give me some tips and tricks that you guys have used, because I know you guys are pretty structured. So Beth, I'm going to start with you, because I know you do a lot of these things and you're pretty self-aware. So anything you could tell our users to how to become more disciplined?
Oh gosh, this is a hard question for me. I think the more I reflect on it in like recent years, I think I realize that I don't like structure and I do struggle with discipline. And so, growing up as an athlete in college and in high school, I kind of didn't have to think about some of it. It was kind of already set for me, and you just do what you do and you have your teammates and everybody keeps each other accountable. And so since being out of that sphere, it's been really hard for me to be disciplined and to be consistent with things. So for me, like over the past year and like 2 years specifically, I guess with COVID, it's just been, staying accountable with different people. I work out with my brother. And so just doing that twice a week and just checking in with other people. So that's really like my go-to and what helps me stay consistent and accountable to my own routine. So.
Love that. Any other coaches want to chime in before I ask one of you all? Anyone have anything at the top of their mind?
I'll go ahead, Dana.
Good. I was going to call on you anyway.
Awesome. So I have a quote that I share with everybody that I love so much. Motivation often comes after action, not the other way around. So this applies to me. I don't naturally gravitate toward reading books. I'd rather, go to the gym or play some video games, but I recognize the value in reading. So I've been forcing myself to start small, read like 5 pages every night, develop that small habit. And oftentimes I'll find myself gaining the motivation to read 10, 20 pages after I tell myself, hey, I'm just going to read 5. So I think just starting something and developing that habit is huge in creating more motivation to get yourself going.
I love that. Like, I think you hit the nail on the head, and it made me think of something. Like 2 years ago, my brother, he's an athlete as well, but he does not work out. He has 2 young boys, but he plays like recreational sports, and like he wanted to get in a little bit better shape. So for summer and things like that. So I challenged him, and it was a pretty hefty challenge, but 5 days a week, he had to do 50 push-ups a day. So he could do them in five push-up increments, 1 push-up increment, whatever. It didn't have to be 50 in one. But so I was annoying and checked on him every day. So we are like 2 months into this. I swear to you, this dude has lost 10 pounds. And I'm like, how did he lose 10 pounds by doing 50 push-ups? He was like, well, I started with 50 and a month in, I was just crushing it. So I went to 100. And then I started doing squats with it. And then I wanted to eat better. And it's like, it's that trickle down effect where like, he really did like not expect to do anything grand, but it was like he started really small and then like it started feeding him like, I can do this. And you know, he'd go to the bathroom, do 10 squats or things like that. And it was like just little increments over time and the consistency over time. I swear it's the best he's looked in 5 summers. And so that just lends itself to what you said, like motivation often happens after the fact too, by the action we take. So I love that. Let's call him one more coach. Mark, you got anything for us?
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes from Mike Tyson is kind of a two-parter. Well, actually, get it for the one part. Discipline is doing the thing. Let me pull it up here. So discipline is doing what you hate to do, but doing it like you love it. So basically, it's never going to be a point where you're always motivated, but in the days where you don't like it, you got to pretend like you love it and just get the work done, because that's what it boils down to. Some days you just got to get in there, suck it up, and get it done. So that's what it is. Like I tell my athletes that are trying to really excel, this is what it is. Like if you can come in, you can show up late, but that doesn't mean we're going to work harder, because you got to get this work in. You got to get this work done. So basically stay focused on the goal, keep the goal posted where you can see it, keep it on at the top of mind and work toward it every day, because like you said, once the action happens, it gets easier. The work doesn't get easier, but showing up gets easier, and it becomes less of a grind to get you from point A to point B, but you get the work done even if you hate it.
Yeah, I love that. It goes like along with when I think of disciplined, motivation seems like pretty to me, right? Like motivation is pretty. Like you're motivated, you're amped, you're excited, you're smiling. When you get in that discipline era, like sometimes it's not pretty. Sometimes your workouts are terrible, but guess what? You made it there. I think the hardest part is making it. And I think a lot of times people that have trained a long time, they understand every day is not going to be pretty. Most of the time, my workouts are going to be like mediocre. And then one day I'm going to have a banger and it's just going to be like, whoo, what a great day. But most are going to be subpar. And that's where like the real grind is that it's not pretty. And a lot of times we go into things thinking like, this is going to be pretty. Like, and the grind part of it and the discipline part of it is not always fun. But I think, you know, as we move into this, I would say, you know, another question that I have for Xavion is like, when we think of attributes and things like that, like, what do you feel, what are some trends you see in individuals that usually make them successful in overall health? What are some trends you see amongst people that usually set them up for success?
For sure. We kind of slipped it in earlier, but first and foremost, it's just consistency. I mean, Dana, you said it, and I couldn't relate more of like, you know, having been training for a long time and working on my own health for a long time, that there's some days where I'm like, I can do some other things, but just got to walk in the gym, you know what I mean? And that's your first step. And from there, you can kind of piece it together. Or, you know, if your, you know, goals lie more in the nutrition realm, like setting yourself up for success when you go to the grocery store, just try to get those, you know, healthy snack options is an issue for me personally. My meals are fine. It's what happens in between. It's the sweet tooth. It's stuff like that. So trying to lean in and be as consistent as possible with those small things, I think is huge.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's like one small step at a time, and it doesn't have to be the whole kitchen or anything like that. But again, small steps aren't pretty. Like large things that happen are more exciting. But what everyone doesn't see is like the little steps that took to get you to your goal, right? Maybe. So I don't have a sweet tooth at all. Like I could go probably the rest of my life without eating cake. But chips, I will crush it. Like any chip. I literally can't have them in my house. I can't, because it's game over. And I'm not talking about like 4 chips. I'm talking about watching my favorite series, whole bag of chips, gone. And it's just something I recognized really early on that like I can't do. But guess what? There still are times in my life that like I go to my parents and I'm in their pantry and I eat some chips. But the next day, it's okay. I just go back to what I was doing before. And I think there's a really fine line with like being disciplined and giving yourself grace. Like, we don't want to give ourselves too much grace where we're eating bags of chips 4 days a week, but we need to give enough discipline to not do that. But like, if you have them every now and again, like the world is not going to fall apart. It is okay. And it's okay to hop back on. You didn't do that much destruction. So, you know, I think what I would like to hear from all of our coaches, and I think this is a big one for our audience, is like, what are some action steps? Like, we can say all day long, like, you just got to do it, but what are some action steps that we can provide to our users to like really help them out along the way?
Hey, one that I have is eat the elephant. I always live by that. Is basically you can't eat a whole elephant in one go. So basically, you're gonna break it down into small bites. Basically, break any task that you have down into those smaller bites, and then the same thing goes with whatever your goals are. Okay, break it down into your tasks. So okay, what needs to be done now, and get those things done. And then from the aspect of okay, knowing what your triggers are, your limitations are. If you know chips are your trigger, don't have them. Your main chips, don't have those in the house. Or if you know, okay, this craving is continually coming on, go ahead, kill it, have a little bit, kill the craving, get back to your regularly scheduled program, because if you keep putting it off, it's going to get bigger and bigger, and it's going to overtake you. So basically, set your goals, attack those goals step by step, and then know your triggers and take care of those things, and be cognizant of who you are and be realistic with yourself.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's like Amy and I were talking about this earlier today, is like a lot of us, like from or not Halloween, but like Thanksgiving on, we just destroy ourselves. And it's like there are certain things that we can do to set ourselves up for success. Like even with the start of the holidays rolling in, how do we set ourselves up to like not go down this downhill slope that you feel in your mindset can shift right back to where you were? And y'all know how I feel about mindset. Like that's where it's at. It starts with mindset and everything. So Xavier, talk to me about some action items that you've done or you've come across in your research with this topic.
For sure. I'll start there with mindset, actually. We kind of talked a little bit about it earlier too, that trying to shift your thoughts into understanding that like those little things that you're doing are significant. And on the flip side, kind of it's what you and Mark were just talking about, of if you do kind of step off the path, if you will, that you're not ruined, right? You should get right back to what you're doing, even if it's one small step at a time, getting right back on track. You haven't ruined yourself. It's not over. Keep chipping away at it. I do like to self-reflect. So my thoughts usually go to, you know, why did I start this in the first place? Okay, do I feel like I've done everything in my control to get to this point? Yes or no? And try to, you know, steer myself in the right direction that way. And that's where a lot of those times where I might be struggling to get my own workout in, and I just got to get myself in the gym to get myself going. And then I took a few notes over here, so I see me look to the side. But going back to using your motivation as fuel, right? So when you are at the peak of your motivation, capitalize on that. Don't let that extra fuel you've got go to waste. Set yourself up for success in those moments and use every ounce of it. Not really wasting a second of it.
I love that. We have a question from Jenny, and I have something for you. So Jenny asks, how do you help yourself stay connected to the bigger goal before you start to see the progress? What a great question. Maybe you're 3 to 4 weeks in better eating, more focused workouts, you're reading regularly, but you haven't yet seen whatever benefits you're looking for. I'm going to let a lot of our coaches weigh in because it's such a great question. What I would say to you, Jenny, is like, patience. Patience is so hard. It's so hard for all of us, especially in a world where everything is instantaneous. And that is one thing I would say about health and change in health. And either if it's weight, if it's muscle, if it's whatever, it takes so much patience. And discipline comes with patience. It is like understanding that it may have taken you a while to get where you're currently at. And now you have a new goal to get back to this, or to gain this much muscle, or lose this much weight, or bring your calories down, or whatever that may be, is understand the time that it takes. So I think speaking with a professional that understands, like, so if it is weight loss, right? If you're looking to lose 20 pounds, the honest truth is that could take 20 weeks. The average healthy weight loss for a female is 1 to 2 pounds per week, and that is excellent. And what that means is you are losing weight at a very healthy rate, and more likely you are gaining lifestyle, you are making lifestyle changes that you will continue throughout your life, that you will keep the weight off. People can drop weight, people can drop 10 pounds in a week, but can they keep it off? And I think that's where you have to look at, like, what are your goals and are they realistic? And then start to look at how you can maybe judge your goals differently. Maybe you're starting to look at a scale. Maybe you start to look at how your pants fit. So just different things like that to gauge your goals. I'm going to turn it over to the group. What do you got? Can you guys help Jenny out? Anybody?
Yeah. So it's not for everyone, but I would say some people really benefit from journaling. So just journaling how you're feeling, noticing if you're having more energy, or just how like your mental health is, if you feel better about yourself. So trying to, celebrate those wins of noticing the positive changes of exercise. And then, like Dana was saying, I usually suggest people to take measurements in other ways, not just the scale. So, waist, hips, thigh, whatever you want to track. And usually you'll see a little bit of difference in that area before you see huge numbers drop on the scale.
Love that, Beth.
Kind of add to that too, it's also just celebrating the little wins. I mean, the fact that you're making those behavior changes and you're changing for the good, even though you might not see the weight drop as fast as you want, knowing that you're making that change can keep that motivation going, and that drives strong to keep you going.
Awesome. Anybody else before we move on? All right, Xavion, what I have for you, this is a tough one too. When you feel like overall motivation is lacking, like, how do you get back on track? Or what are some things that have become habits of discipline for you that have helped when the motivation simply is just not there?
Yeah, this might answer the previous question for you as well, but I have to have for me personally, I have to have some type of physical representation of why I started. Sometimes it's as simple as putting a date on the calendar. Sometimes it's, some reminder, maybe in my room, maybe in my phone. I'm staring at my phone all the time, like a lot of other people. I have a note in there, and I have to just take a moment and, it's almost meditative in a sense, but I have to take a moment and ask myself, why did I start this? What was, and not like what am I, not necessarily what I'm trying to achieve, but like, why did I start this? What was said to me? What did I notice? What happened to spur this thought? And I try to tap back into that original emotion. That's, usually what motivation comes from, some sort of emotion that we're having, some sort of reaction. Then I'm able to kind of trail that back to where I currently was, of like, okay, I came up with a plan. Where am I at my plan? Okay, I got a little off track. That's okay. What was the previous step that I was on? And I'll pick up where I left off. And definitely easier said than done, but it's the steps that I have to take to try and get there. So sometimes that can take a little bit of time, but it usually does pretty well to get me back on track.
Yeah, for sure. And I've seen where people have like talked about writing things down for their goals and things like that. I would say that is great. When I lose motivation, which I've talked to many of you all prior with the coaches, like, I'm struggling with workouts lately. I'm doing them, but I have no motivation to do it. And that's never happened to me since I've been 17 years old. So that's been a huge struggle. It's like, what's going on? And so some things that I've had to do to pivot is like just more fun things that I enjoy doing, like getting outside, going for a run. That may not have been my scheduled workout, but you know what? I'm moving and that's some type of movement and I'm going to enjoy the outside. But I think what I've had to do is when there's really no motivation is just depend on my discipline to get me through that until I find some motivation. So I would say for the biggest thing for me to get back on track is planning, like plan when I'm going to work out, plan my meals. And I don't mean like every single meal. You all know I'm about a balanced lifestyle. But you know, plan if I have to coach in the morning, then and I'm doing something after work, then I need to coach. I need to train right after I coach. So I need to bring my clothes. I need to bring breakfast. Like all of that comes into success. And sometimes it's annoying, but a lot of times it's necessary too. So I want to ask all the coaches this, and all of our listeners, like I'd love to answer some of your questions. What are some things that you have struggled with in overall health more frequently than others? So I don't know what I would say for me, I'll go first. It's been, I feel like I have a handle on it now, but I would say stress management. I think that took a while and it impacted my overall health. I was eating right, exercising, but it didn't matter because I was like so stressed out all the time. It didn't matter. So I would say for me, it's been stress management. I'd love to hear from you guys. Matt Hands, what are some things you've struggled with in overall health more frequently than others, and how did you come out of that?
I think I'll probably piggyback off of you here. Mine has also been stress management. For as long as I can remember, I've always been the person who thought they handled stress really well and thought that it didn't affect me. I guess, you know, as you get older and you get new stressors and different life events, you come back down to reality a little bit. And
that's the truth.
And you realize, okay, maybe I'm not, you know, maybe I and you don't even know, you know, when you're affected with stress, you're like, I don't know. I thought I was fine, you know, but, you know, so for me, it was, you know, utilizing a lot of reflection and, you know, switching my thought process from more, you know, objective goals and objective thoughts to more subjective, like, okay, how am I feeling this week? How am I feeling about this? Is my motivation up a little bit? Do I actually want to work out this week? And just kind of really reflecting on some of those little pieces you kind of overlook a lot of times because we get so hyper focused on objective goals, you know, and we write them down and do that stuff. But when your stress is all over the place, you're not thinking about those things. You're thinking about your body and how you feel and how you think and those things. So for me, it was reflection, also trying to, you know, do a little more mindfulness work on top of all that.
Nice. Nicole, we haven't called on you yet. We want to hear from you. What are some things that you've struggled with in overall health more frequently than others? And how did you get back on track with discipline or with motivation? How'd that go for you?
Something that I struggle with that I still work on is comparison with myself though. Pre-COVID, I was like the top of my game. Like I went to a specific gym. I did specific lifts, like very heavy lifts. I was very like into it, had a coach. And then for the whole year, like I'm not gonna lie, like I didn't go to a gym mostly because it was closed where I was living, but also I lost motivation completely. So I lost a lot of muscle compared to where I used to be. So right now I'm trying to just like rid myself of how I used to be and know that I will get there with those small gains as well. And how can I move my body that makes it feel good and know that the numbers that I had before, I can get there, but
I just have to start back up, and little by little, like, I'll feel good. So what can I do today? What can I do tomorrow? Not, oh, I wish I could be, because you can't, it's the past. So what can I do for the future?
Absolutely. And it all goes back to mindset. I know Eric dropped in the comments, my lack of sleep has taken out some motivation. All of our coaches feel the same about sleep. It is, I would say, the number one most important thing for your overall health. So I can definitely see where that's taken away your motivation. You know, you have a very young child, Eric, so it's easy to say, well, just go to bed earlier, but that's not the case. It may be a while before you get back into that realm of health, just as a new parent. Anybody, Andrew, I want to hear from you. And then I want to ask our final question, but Andrew, I want to hear from you. Have you struggled with anything in overall health, and what discipline measures have you taken to kind of overcome that?
Yeah, so I think starting out, it's been, it kind of always goes back to your mindset. You know, I used to be very, very good at accomplishing things and getting tasks done, such as showing up at the gym and crushing workouts, or taking care of, you know, stuff for work or school or whatever it was. You know, I didn't have to really track anything or write anything down, and just was on top of it. And I think for me, it's like the self-realization, kind of what X touched on, was like self-reflection. And I think incorporating more self-reflection has been hugely beneficial for me, because I realized I'm not the same as I was 5-10 years ago. I'm not in the same headspace. I'm not doing the same thing. So for me, it was like, all right, I need to start making lists, writing things down, and self-reflecting so I can accomplish goals in the same sense I was before. Whereas it used to come very easily, very naturally. And now I'm like, well, I'm not getting stuff done. And once I kind of accepted, like, hey, I'm getting older, I'm forgetting things here and there, writing it down and making the point to check my list, self-reflect, and then go after those goals one by one. And also what Mark said, kind of breaking them into smaller things. Like, that has been like my big thing is, and that's how I've kind of overcome that maybe lack of motivation and try to become more disciplined by saying, hey, I know I'm not going to get this done because I could potentially forget, write it down, cross it off the list. And so that's really been hugely helpful for me.
Yeah, and I love that you said you're not the same that you are 5 years ago. I think that's important for all of us to realize, is like, there's going to be different seasons of life that you're in. There's like fitness, health is not linear. It ebbs and flows. Like, we love to be at the peak of our health. But it's important that, I think for me, discipline goes right along with consistency, right? Because if we lack discipline, we're not going to be consistent. Therefore, we won't have good outcomes in our health. But if we're consistent, it usually is because we're disciplined in what we're doing every day, and we'll have better health outcomes. You know, I want to get to Xavier on our last question, and then see if we have any in the chat. Xavier, what would be your biggest piece of advice when an individual is working towards improving their lifestyle pertaining to their health?
Sure. I'd say it'd be, my biggest piece of advice would be to, you know, try and tap into your why, and let your discipline and motivation all play into one another. So tapping into your why, you know, what spurred your thought, what made you want to make this change in the first place? While you're at the peak of your motivation, set yourself up for success. Come up with a game plan. If you need to talk to somebody, find somebody to talk to. If you need to, you know, get yourself access to certain resources, like start hammering out that, because that's going to be probably the most difficult part, if we're being honest. You know, learning what we need to know to improve in the first place. Then after that, just realize that just getting into the door, just getting that, you know, those items into your home, just getting yourself into the right position to move forward is a significant first step. And try to get to that same step every single time. And every once in a while, you'll take another step forward. And before you know it, you know, you're down the road. And if you're not at your goal, you're, you know, well past it, you know, maybe halfway to it, wherever you're at, but you're making progress and you're doing the right things. And developing that discipline to see yourself succeed and make those changes you want to make.
Yeah, I'd love that. Anybody else, any other coaches want to add to this? I think it's been a great conversation, but love to hear what you guys have to say as we close this out here.
I would say also think about your energy levels. I know seems like it doesn't really fall in with discipline, but you know, be honest with yourself. If you are not a morning person, then don't try to force it. But if you're gonna get it done in the evening, then that's when you get it done. You know, you might be, if you are like a morning person, but sometimes you get a little tired and the workout doesn't seem too great, but that's, you know, when it'll get done, then that is disciplining yourself to get it done. Again, like Dana said, it's not going to be 100%. Oh my gosh, I feel so amazing. It's just a check off the list. So think about when you have the most energy and time throughout your day to get something in.
100%. Listen, I'm not a morning person and it's just not happening. It's not happening. I will skip the workout. I know it. I will have my shoes by the door, my bag packed, and my alarm will go off. And I'm like, I just can't. I can't. And I know that about myself. That's why, like, I have to be a non-negotiable and train in the evening. Like, if you're gonna push that alarm button and you're not getting up, you better find another time to train. Like, that's how I have to approach it. I think I had something else I wanted to talk about, but I completely forgot. But Nicole, I think that's great advice, is like, be cognizant of like when you do your best and when you perform your best. You know, discipline is something that I believe can take time and can develop over time. I think it's making a plan and starting with it, and, you know, try to find something that starts your fire. Like, you know, what type of music do you train best to? Like, what type of clothes do you like to wear when you work out? I think that all comes into like how we feel, how our mindset is, and ultimately how we're going to perform day in and day out. Any other coaches before we hop off here? All right, guys. Thank you, Xavion. You did an awesome job. Thank you, team. We will be back with you guys on November 2nd. This one's going to be super fun. Matt Hands will be the presenter. Beth is facilitating this one. We're talking resistance training, guys, and why it's not just for meatheads. So come join us, talk about strength training, understand why it's just not for the big boys in the gym, and we'll see you on November 2nd. Thanks, guys. Bye.